Welcome to the Punch Out. I'm your host, Alex McNinch, and welcome back to another episode this week. And quick little turnaround from Friday's episode to Monday's. This is where it gets a little tough when listening. If you don't have time to listen to the first one, you got the second one. But luckily here, we're not doing anything where news is too much breaking, and rather we're just kind of going over the previews for different divisions in each season. Obviously, last week was the American League East. If you have not listened to it yet, please go check it out. It's a great episode. A little long of some of the teams compared to the others. So made some adjustments based on that for this week's episode to kind of cut it down a little bit because, what's the point in talking about teams that are not going to be as important? But unfortunately from last week's episode, the curse of my shows continue to live on. If you followed my shows in the previous years as Your Sports Digest, you would know that there is the Your Sports Digest curse where I post an episode and news breaks immediately after, or the most drastic thing about what I talk about happens to a player or to a team after I post the episode, and it makes me look terrible. So we have some breaking news within the MLB here based on two teams that we talked about that are going to finish near the top of the AL East. First, one of the lesser things to note about Grayson Rodriguez, star pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, is going to be out 7 to 10 days from throwing with a elbow tightness, elbow soreness, and inflammation in the elbow. They gave him a cortisone shot, so 7 to 10 days he should be able to start throwing again. How much of a ramp-up will it be after that? TBD. They've given really no more updates and information based on that. That's all we know so far, but without Grayson Rodriguez in that Orioles rotation, it's going to get a little scary. And then the other one, which is massive news for the American League East. And I know this is the AL Central podcast, but this is as big as breaking news as you could potentially get here for spring training. Gerrit Cole, star pitcher, ace of the New York Yankees, has elbow soreness. They're very worried about him. There is Tommy John surgery on the table. He's seeking a third and fourth opinion on this, and the Yankees are very nervous. Cole is very nervous, and Yankee fans are very nervous because Gerrit Cole could be missing the entirety of this season and potentially half of next season with this injury. And Cole, obviously, this offseason opted out of his contract, re-signed the exact same deal, hoping that he would get a little bit more money or years. Just didn't happen, so they re-signed the deal that they basically had in place already. But that's a lot of money for Gerrit Cole going down the stretch of his career where it seems like he's taking a little tick back on velocity. Maybe the command isn't going to be there all the way anymore, and now you have this major bump in the road where you're going to be paying for a year and a half or so of his contract that he won't even be pitching. And I know for the Yankees it shouldn't be an issue at all, but still, when you're down a guy like Gerrit Cole, everything shifts up in the rotation. Now Max Fried, thank the God if you're a Yankee fan that you signed him, because now that's your number one. And then the guys below him, Rodon shifts up, Stroman shifts up, Schmidt shifts up. Luis Gil's going to be out for a while, so you're out without him now. Who's going to fill that fifth starter role? It's going to be interesting, and that's massive news for the AL East, and that means that division is wide open for the taking if you're the Red Sox, and that's where I'm really excited. But enough about the AL East. We talked about them on Friday. This week it's about talking about the AL Central for this episode. Friday, I'm thinking we do the NL Central on Friday, and then next Monday we do the NL West. That way we can get those in before the MLB opening season happens next week in Japan between the Cubs and the Dodgers. So that's kind of what we'll do, but stay posted. All my social medias at the Punch Out Pod, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We'll hopefully start posting things on TikTok if I can find myself the remembrance to do so. But follow me on all my socials, and you can keep up with everything with the show and when I post and what I'm going to do exactly, and scheduling updates and whatnot. So yeah, do that. But let's go ahead and get into the AL Central. Now, this is a division that historically has been very top-heavy and very bad after the top parts. But last year, you look at the teams in the division where the Guardians won 92 games. The Twins were a second-to-last place finish, but yet they won like 81 or 82 games. The Tigers made a great run. The Royals made an incredible run. And the White Sox put up the worst record in baseball history. So a lot of excitement surrounding this division. Let's kind of go over it here. And we're going to start with, obviously, the worst team in the division and the worst team in Major League Baseball, and the Chicago White Sox. And last year, they were terrible. Like, terrible. And, there's things where it's like, well, this didn't go right, this didn't go right. You could pinpoint certain things. No. Literally everything was god-awful. They just needed to scrap everything and start over. And unfortunately, they didn't really do that too much. Their lineup is not great at all. When you look at it, when you're looking at a team like the White Sox, you start to look at, well, where are we going to plug these young guys in that they have in their system? How are we going to get them in this lineup to be able to fast-track them or prepare them for the MLB going forward? And they've got a mixture of veteran guys and younger guys, and it's not great. Let's just make that very clear. Mike Tauchman is your leadoff hitter. He gets on base really well, but that's not obviously what you want. You want one of your young guys to be up there. But the next guy is one of their young guys, and Luis Robert was one of the top prospects in baseball in center field. Had an amazing couple of years within 20 to 22 to 23, and I think in 23 he hit 30-something home runs, and last year just fell off the face of the earth. And injuries also kind of played a factor into this, but there was a lot of rumors of his name going to the Phillies or to the Reds in the offseason. Ultimately stayed put. I think he's eventually going to get offloaded because the White Sox don't keep good talent around, as we obviously saw them trade Gerrit Crochet away. This team's just not good. Andrew Vaughn also in this lineup. Miguel Vargas, who they got from the Dodgers in the trade for Michael Kopech last year. Josh Rojas, another veteran guy. Lennon Sosa, who's probably one of the more promising young talented bats in this lineup. A lot of hard contact. He's a shorter guy. A lot of hard contact. Not going to really have a lot of pop, but it comes off the bat pretty hard, and he shoots it gap to gap. He looks pretty good. Joey Gallo, an old name that a lot of people might know and remember from his time with Texas or the Yankees when he got traded there, hits bombs. But he's going to strike out a lot. He's upped his walk rate a lot, but he's still hitting sub 200 as a hitter. It doesn't look great. Corey Lee, once was a top prospect for the Astros, has just failed and kind of came down. But he's got a 1.85 pop time, but he's terrible at framing, -7 in framing and -8 blocks. He's not very good. And then the guy that everybody is really excited about within this lineup is Colson Montgomery, another one of the former top prospects for the White Sox. It's kind of taken a dip throughout the years, focusing more on his defense rather than his offense, and it became like a seesaw. It was either one or the other. You're going up, you're going down. It's either going to be your hitting's great, your defense isn't. Your defense is great, your hitting isn't. Last year in the minors was not good at all. Didn't look like a guy last year stats-wise that was going to be an MLB caliber shortstop with a bat, but hit 18 homers last year in his time in the minors. He's a reverse splits guy, which is he's a left-handed hitter, reverse splits guy. I don't really know. Again, there's a lot of things with prospects, and they could suck in the minors, and they could be amazing in the majors. And I really hope this is the case for Colson Montgomery and the White Sox because, man, they're not good. Their bench bats, Matt Thaiss, failed catcher with the Angels. Dominic Fletcher, failed prospect with the Diamondbacks, but had some promising spring training at bats that looks pretty good. So maybe he can get there. Michael A. Taylor, a traveling outfielder, has played for 5 or 6 different teams. Brandon Drury, who once was a sought-after player here just over a year and a half ago, maybe, and now finds himself on a non-roster invite with the White Sox, potentially breaking camp with them. So the lineup's not very great, and the pitching staff does not get any better when your lead starter is Martin Perez, soft-throwing left-handed guy, really relied on a lot of contact and soft contact ground balls and just didn't get that last year at all. And his year split with the Padres and the Pirates. He was traded at the deadline. Everything's starting to seem to regress for him. He threw 135 innings last year. It just didn't look great. But that's your number one guy for the White Sox. Behind him, Jonathan Cannon really doesn't throw it hard enough at all. He tries to get a lot of soft contact, and they just barrel him up. But maybe he can make some tweaks and get there. But with obviously how that staff there in Chicago takes things, it's not promising. Hopefully Will Venables, the new manager, former Red Sox and Rangers bench coach, won the World Series with them. Hopefully he could kind of get things back on track. And he's a good guy, great manager probably. So hopefully those things can kind of figure themselves out. Davis Martin's another guy that is going to be in this rotation. He came off of injury last year. He didn't look the worst out of everybody from the Savant page. But still, then you look at to a guy like Sean Burke, who was not good in the minors, had limited innings last year through 19 innings, had a 1.42 ERA, 22 strikeouts, was not terrible, but what is a bigger sample size going to look? And then Bryce Wilson's the final guy to round out the rotation. Former Braves starting pitching prospect, had a lot of promise with him as well. Switched to the bullpen when he was with Milwaukee and was awesome. Now they're trying to convert him back to a starter like everybody else it seems to be in the MLB. We'll see how that works out. I think he's a much better reliever. His stuff plays a lot better. Bullpen just not great. Justin Anderson, Fraser Ellard, Gus Varland, Cam Boozer, former Red Sox, who just made his debut last year at like 33 years old. Jordan Leazier, Tyler Gilbert, failed prospect. Penn Murphy was once a really good pitcher or really solid pitcher for the Mariners. And then Shane Smith, who was just whatever. It's just not good. It's really not good at all. But the good thing is for the White Sox is you look kind of towards their prospects, and because they traded a guy like Gerrit Crochet, you're able to stack up a little bit more on your prospects. They obviously get two guys that I'm very aware of, and Kyle Teel and Braden Montgomery. Loved both of those prospects. Montgomery less so than Kyle Teel, just because I didn't have as much of an attachment to Montgomery as a Red Sox fan for him being here for such a short amount of time. But Montgomery can really find his way fast-tracking through the minors, I feel. Was almost an MLB-ready bat at A&M just last year before he broke his leg in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, A&M ended up rallying behind that and pushing forward to a College World Series finish. Obviously, losing to Tennessee in that run, but Montgomery's a switch hitter, much better from the left side. A lot of pop, really solid defense, really good arm in the outfield. I think that's a guy that you're going to be looking at kind of taking over the reins in right field for a while for the White Sox. And then the other guy that got in the trade, Kyle Teel. I absolutely love Kyle Teel. His hit tool is really, really great for a catcher. He has improved every year defensively behind the plate. Lefty bat, good swing, has a lot of pop, not afraid to shoot it the other way. Behind the plate, his framing has gotten much better. The blocking is still hit or miss, but they're working on it. It's gotten better. Him calling pitches. The whole thing is you want soft hands. You want a soft hands behind the plate and a loud glove. And Kyle Teel has been working on that a lot, trying to get to where he needs to be defensively to be able to be a major league starting catcher, because quite frankly, this is a guy that could have broke the camp with the Red Sox and been the backup catcher or the starting catcher on the opening day roster for the Red Sox this year. And, obviously the White Sox are in a place where they don't necessarily need to push him that hard. So at 23, they don't have to rush him too much, and maybe he gets called up in September or a couple months into the season. That's to be seen, but I love Kyle Teel, obviously, coming out of Virginia, and was super excited to get him. Hopefully that things start to work out for him when it comes time to his time on the main roster. And then other guys, Noah Schultz is their number one prospect at the moment. Lefty starter. He's really, really good. Nasty slider. Good fastball from the left side. Really, really tall dude. I think he's like 6'8", 6'9". Big dude. They're taking his time with him. Hagen Smith, another guy, left-handed guy from Arkansas. Throws it really hard. Good slider. Controls kind of hit or miss with him. Chase Mydroth, another guy that was also in that trade with the Gerrit Crochet trade, loves to get on base, was awesome at AAA at it, has a chance to crack the starting lineup at some point this year. He's undersized playing the infield, but played a really solid third base and a decent second base as well. So that's another guy that you can look at. Jacob Gonzalez, former Ole Miss Rebel at shortstop, another prospect, really good hit tool. His arm is great. His fielding is pretty solid. He didn't have that much power in the minors, but if you watched him play at Ole Miss, obviously he was a standout player there. He could obviously make an impact here going forward for this organization. The White Sox are just not good. That's kind of what we're looking at right here. Last year they won 40-something games. I have them only winning 58 this year. 58-114. There's no way that you trade Gerrit Crochet and you gain more wins than you do last year. Sure, you're expecting Luis Robert to be a little bit better. You're expecting guys like Rojas and Tauchman and Gallo to kind of look better. Montgomery to come, Colson Montgomery that is, to come up and play really well. And maybe your bullpen or some of the young starters take a step. I just don't see it with this team. So yeah, another sub 60 win season for the White Sox, and God, please help anybody that's a White Sox fan, because it is bad. The next thing we're going to talk about, it's interesting because this division has a lot of teams where you look at their lineups and you think about, okay, well, a lot of them's got this top-heavy lineup, and then what are the questions 6 through 9, or 5 through 9 even with some teams, especially the one that we're about to talk about here. But they've got good pitching, and they've got young, promising players, but who is going to stay healthy and who is going to be able to rise above and perform at the highest level? And a team that won 92 games this year, I just don't see how they can repeat the success that they did with the lineup-wise. And that's the Cleveland Guardians. Last year they were one of the best teams in baseball, and they, because of their rotation and because of their bullpen. And quite frankly, you look at it this year, and they're not as healthy as they were last year, and you expect a lot of these guys to take a step back. One of the main things that the Guardians did is they traded one of their more electrifying players in Josh Naylor from first base, and that plugs a massive hole of what you do there, because now you're having to sign other guys and hope that these prospects are ready, when quite frankly, they're just not. Their lineup still has Steven Kwan at the top and Jose Ramirez right behind him. Jose Ramirez is one of the best players in baseball, probably the most underrated player in baseball for sure. 39 homers last year for J-Ram, 872 OPS, 6.5 wins overall. He's awesome. But then right after that, they're expecting that Kyle Manzardo, who only had 156 plate appearances last year with the big league roster, is to slide in and be the DH batting third. He's a good lefty guy, got some good pop, but he strikes out a ton. So it's hard to look at this lineup and say, yeah, this is the lineup that's going to go berserker, again, like they did last year. Carlos Santana, right after, he's going to be the new first baseman. He hit 23 homers last year, but he keeps getting older. It's not like he's going to continue to get any better. Maybe he will, and maybe in a place of comfort, him formerly playing here in Cleveland, maybe that helps. But then after that, it's Lane Thomas, who they acquired midseason, was okay, had a lot of strikeouts, but is a really fast guy, steals bases. And then Will Brennan in the outfield, Bo Naylor behind the plate, Josh's brother, who can't hit but really solid defensively, obviously. Gabriel Arcia, Brian Rocchio, just kind of whatever contacts infielders that play defense. You're missing David Fry, who was your best bet. Was your second best bat outside of J-Ram last year, and he's on the 60-day. He's going to be out for a while. And your bench is pretty much the same thing. Austin Hedges, Big Christmas, Junksy Noel, Tyler Freeman, another prospect they're expecting to come up, and Jonathan Rodriguez, the same for him as well. It just doesn't look like this lineup. When you look at it, when you look at a lineup like what we're going to read here in a little bit, and you look at it and it's like, yeah, this guy can hit. Okay, wait, we're down to the 7-hole. This guy can hit too. It doesn't look like that's the team. But then you get to the rotation in their bullpen, and you start to think, well, maybe that this team can do something, and maybe I am underrating kind of what the whole team could be just because of what their rotation and bullpen are. Now, the rotation's not as great as the bullpen. Tanner Bybee is their main guy heading the rotation, who I absolutely love. 3.47 ERA last year with a 9.69 K rate, or K per nine rather, 2.28 walks per nine, 187 strikeouts with a 3.3 WAR. I love his stuff. He throws it really hard. Has a nasty changeup, good slurve, slider, sweeper, whatever he wants to call it at this point. He's a great guy to front the rotation. But then right after that, Ben Lively. I don't know. I don't know how Ben Lively is really going to sustain his success that he had. I mean, shout out to him. He's a Pensacola kid. Like, I think he might have won the Gulf Breeze. If you're from Pensacola and know that, I guess that's kind of maybe. I think that's where he went to school. But how much success is he going to sustain? He's not a high punch-out guy necessarily. He's going to get a lot of swing and miss and hopefully soft contact. But then after that, Gavin Williams, who's just not good at all. Not good at all. Gets hit hard, walks guys, can't strike out anybody. That's rough. Luis Ortiz, who they got a part of this whole Andres Jimenez, Spencer Horwitz, then Luis Ortiz trade, kind of love triangle that the Guardians, the Pirates, and the Blue Jays had. So they got Ortiz back, who's a promising arm. I think he could really step up in this rotation. Had a 3.32 ERA last year. And then Tristan McKenzie is the number 5, who once was one of the more promising arms in baseball. Cruel dude, but man, last year he just couldn't figure it out. Couldn't find his control coming off of injury. Sent down the minors, had a 5.11 ERA. Hopefully this is the year where he can kind of figure it out. And I think that's maybe what these experts are expecting him to do, is to take that step to come back. And then they're also expecting that Shane Bieber is going to be coming back to this rotation by the All-Star break. So, that's a huge addition if you can get him back. But at what point is it not going to be enough because of this lineup not able to create runs? I could be completely wrong, and all these players take a step up and they win, 80-something games or 90-something games, and I look like an idiot. But you just look at it and you start to think about how the rotation will sustain. It's questionable. Their bullpen, there's no doubts about how good this bullpen could be. Emmanuel Clase, one of the best two closers. I don't want to get ahead of myself and say he's the best closer in baseball, because Mason Miller might have something to say about that this year. But he's one of the best closers in baseball. There's no doubt about that. Felix Bautista also, I forgot to mention him. We talked about him last episode. But he finished in the top 3 in Cy Young Award voting last year in 74 innings pitched. Had a 6.1 ERA out of the pen with 47 saves. Gross. But when he got to the playoffs, they took him deep a couple times, and he didn't look too great. But these other guys looked amazing. Cade Smith is their setup guy in 75 innings, 1.91 ERA. Hunter Gaddis, 74 innings, 1.57 ERA. Tim Herron, awesome left-hander, 65 innings, 1.29 ERA. Like, these are your staple guys that they relied on a lot. Now, the question is because of their high usage last year, what is their gas rate going to look like this year? Did they empty the tank on last year to where this year they've got nothing? And that was the worry about them down the stretch. They used them a lot during the year. Obviously, you have 3 pitchers that threw 65-plus innings for your team. You look at that, and when you get to the postseason, it was almost like, when are they going to run out of gas? And they just didn't for a while, and it was incredible. So maybe they're able to kind of take this from last year, have this rest period, and develop and get better and stay healthy for the next stretch run that they have. But it also is not unfair and unrealistic to think that, how much is that going to have a wear and tear on them and affect on what they do this year? They went out and got Paul Sewald, who is an awesome closer for the Mariners, traded to the D-backs during their postseason run to the World Series. Kind of had an off year last year, but has the stuff to be able to play as a seventh inning guy and sixth inning guy even. Fill in as a closer if you need him to. He's got closer experience. Other guys, Andrew Walters, not really too familiar on him. Doug Nikhazy, another Ole Miss Rebel from that 2022 National Championship team that a certain someone is going to be really excited to hear his name being said. A former starter, going to be turned reliever, left-handed guy. And then Jacob Junis, a former starter, now turned reliever as well. Looks like he'll be in the back of the back of the bullpen, but he could easily slot in as a starter if a guy like Gavin Williams doesn't do good. He's another guy that relies a lot on contact for the most part. So again, the bullpen, there's no question about how good the bullpen is going to be. The rotation's up in the air, and kind of just what you're looking for is, will that lineup outproduce what last year's did, or what the expectations of this year will? And they've got guys in the system that can come help. Chase Delorier is probably the main guy, a lefty bat, 23 years old, really good hit tool with a lot of power, can run, awesome arm, fielding has gotten better. I expect him to probably be up at some point this year. He has just got it. I'm really surprised. I would not be surprised if he breaks camp. Honestly, if they're really just looking for that spark in that lineup, if he breaks from camp, I changed my opinion a little bit on what this team could be. But then they also got a lot of other guys down here that could be great. Well, I would say down here, but the number one prospect in Travis Bazzana is unbelievable lefty. Probably one of the best hitting prospects in baseball, if not the best hitting prospect in baseball. Went number one in the draft 2 years ago. He's going to play second base. That's really where he is because he's a little undersized, I guess. But how fast can he make it to the majors? Other guys that you can kind of scroll down and look. Joey Cantillo might make an impact in the MLB as a lefty starter. Has a really, really good changeup. Doesn't know how to control any of his pitches at the most part, but could make an impact. Juan Brito can make an impact in the MLB right now as an infielder if one of the Arias or Rocchio don't really make too much of an impact. Brito can come up and help, and then other guys down the bottom of their prospect rankings. Daniel Espino, who has some major league experience, awesome fastball, awesome fastball. Has no idea where it's going, but awesome fastball, awesome slider. He can make an impact on the major league roster, but for the Guardians, it's how can you use last year's success, replicate that with your pitching staff and your bullpen, and hope that your offense can supplement whatever they give you off the mound. Because if Bo Naylor can take a step as an offensive player, you're good. If Lane Thomas can give you the pop that you want him to and a decent OPS batting average, you're good. If Carlos Santana can just repeat what he's been doing for the past couple of years, you're good. I just don't see where you can look at this lineup and think, man, this lineup's better than the next team we're going to talk about, even the next team we're going to talk about, especially one of those that are down the rotation, or not down the rotation, but down the list a little bit here more that we're going to get into that finishes at the top of the division. I don't see it. I have them winning 81 games. 81-81 is what my projection for the Guardians is. Now, that could get better or worse depending on what happens from camp. And if Bieber comes back and performs, obviously that's going to change things. But I don't know. I'm kind of in a weird spot when it comes to the AL Central teams, especially the Guardians, and especially this next team, because I really don't know what to judge them yet, especially last year. Do we overreact to how the Guardians performed last year and think that they're automatically set to perform this year? Or do we look at the lineup and say maybe it's time for them to take a step back? And I start to think about this with the next team. Their lineup and their rotation and their bullpen was amazing last year. Did they overperform, or are they going to start to take a step back? And that's the Kansas City Royals. I have them finishing third to last, which in the record-wise, really not even bad. I think we're going to have a situation like we did last year with the AL Central, where the top three teams are going to just be right there with one another, and one's going to sneak into the wild card, and one's going to just miss, and one's going to be the division winner. So the Royals could be one of those teams that are going to finish, and these next two teams I have finishing with the same record, because I really don't know where to judge them based on last year. The Royals last year were unbelievable down the stretch. Same with the next team we'll talk about. A lot of young talent in the lineup mixed with good veteran leadership and a great bullpen in the back end and some great starting pitching at the front line. Let's talk about them a little bit. Jonathan India is the guy that you acquired from the Reds. We talked about that in the opening episode where they swapped two Gators for one another. So India is going to be their leadoff guy. They have him DHing right now. He gets on base a lot, doesn't really strike out too much. I absolutely love Jonathan India, obviously, for personal reasons, but he's a great leadoff hitter for this lineup, and it sparks India to get right next to the guy that is already solidifying himself as potentially a top 5 player in baseball, and Bobby Witt Jr. Last year, I mean, this is a kid that could have won the MVP if Aaron Judge didn't exist. 332 average, 389 on base, 977 OPS with a 171 OPS plus. So 71% better than the entire major leagues. 32 homers, 109 RBIs, 10.5 WAR. This kid is unreal, and he plays amazing shortstop too. This is a face of baseball type of player. You're not going to get these types of guys every single day. And Bobby Witt Jr., since the second that he got hyped up in his high school days in Oklahoma to the second he got drafted to the second that he reached the majors, everything has been electrifying with him. And on top of it, he steals bases too. He runs hard. He plays every facet of the game exactly how you want it to. He is a 5-tool player. That is the definition of a 5-tool player. And Bobby Witt Jr. is just that guy. I hate that he's in the American League and I have to face him in the playoffs probably for the next 15 years. But it is hard to not tune into Royals games and be like, yeah, well, when's the second guy up to bat coming? Because I want to watch Bobby Witt Jr. hit. And then after him, you got the Pasquatch, Vinny Pasquantino, who had a little bit of an injury last year and came back at the end of the year. 19 homers and 97 RBIs. Would have easily been a 100 RBI guy if he didn't get hurt, maybe even 25-plus homers. He's going to be a first baseman. Salvador Perez, who you know and love probably, behind the dish still. His ability to play catcher is probably starting to step back just a little bit. They've got a really good backup guy. We'll talk about it a little bit, Freddie Fermin. But Salvador Perez is still going to give you quality at-bats, 330 on-base percentage. Last year at 27 homers, 104 RBIs. Absolutely love Salvador Perez. And then behind him, Michael Massey, really good defensive second baseman, kind of why India is being the DH for this team, because Massey is a really good glove there. And then it kind of gets questionable, 6 through 9, maybe even 5 through 9 with Massey's bat, but the potential is there with Massey. Yeah, Hunter Renfroe, who hit 15 homers last year, but he's going to strike out the world. MJ Melendez, 17 homers, but he's going to strike out a lot. Michael Garcia, 37 stolen bases, awesome glove at third base, doesn't really, hit for a good average. And then Kyle Isbell, who's just kind of a stop, hold, gap, and a placeholder. It's the lineup 6 through 9 is the question with this team. What is the production you're going to get? But if you're getting stuff like 15 and 17 homers from Melendez and Renfroe, how will that be sustained? You don't know necessarily. Renfroe obviously is going to sustain his power. Will Melendez do that? His averages slowly creep down every single year. If MJ Melendez played the Boston Red Sox for 82 games or 162 games, move over Barry Bonds, because this guy would be unbelievable. But Garcia maybe could take a step up as a hitter, especially since really all for him, it's about getting on base, and he could steal any bag he wants. Awesome glove. Isbell, again, just a stopgap really for whoever else you want. He's a platoon guy. The bench, Fermin, who we kind of talked about as the new catcher going forward. Awesome defensively, can hit it really well as well. Nick Lofton, infielder. Darion Blanco and Nelson Velasquez, your two outfielders that are platoon guys with the right-handeds, the lefties. The lineup at the top is amazing. Now, what are you going to get? Even 5 through 9, but 6 through 9, rather. You kind of start to wonder what it is you're going to get from that group. Now, the rotation at the start, unbelievable. A guy who could potentially come out this year and win the Cy Young, and Cole Reagans, who, if you're not really familiar with baseball or the trades and the transactions, Cole Reagans was traded from the Texas Rangers because he was dealing with a lot of injuries. Traded from the Rangers at the beginning of the season 3 years ago now. Oh my gosh, 3 years ago now. Almost 3 years ago now for Aroldis Chapman. So the Rangers had a awesome reliever down the stretch and closer for their team. And they just gave Cole Reagans to the Royals, and he has been only on the up and coming since then. Last year in 186 innings pitched, 3.14 ERA, had a 10.7 K9. His walks are up. That's where you got to worry. But 223 strikeouts and a 5 WAR for him. Can't really ask for anything more out of a frontline starter. Punches out a lot of guys. Sure, he's gonna walk some guys, obviously, with the 3.24 walks per 9. But he's still so young. You can progress with him. And most importantly, he's a left-handed pitcher. That's really all you're kind of looking at to have as a number one guy, because as you've noticed, Chris Sale, awesome number one. David Price, awesome number one. Garrett Crochet, awesome number one. Max Fried, awesome number one. These lefties give you a different look, and they can really be some of the more dominant pitchers in baseball. Behind him, Seth Lugo, we talked about him at nauseum the last episode and the episode prior about how his transition from the relief role to a starter was awesome last year. And at 206 innings, he had a 3 ERA, only walked 2 per 9, was a 5.3 WAR guy. He's just awesome to watch. A lot of soft contact, get me over type of pitcher. Now, will he regress? The projections are yes. But if he can still limit the walks still and keep the ball on the ground, the strikeouts don't need to come for him. It's all about limiting hard contact, and he can do really good at that. 3 through 5 in the rotation, it's still hit or miss. What are you going to get from Michael Wacha? He is very, very up and down. 1 year he'll have a 3 ERA, the next year he'll have a 5. But I think he's found the consistency where he can be a high 3, low 4 ERA guy, and that's really all you can ask from him. And then the other two, Michael Lorenzen, who threw a no-hitter, I believe either last year or the year before. He's nothing to be desired about, really. I would not be surprised if he's one of those that gets converted to a bullpen arm down the stretch or option DFA'd so that you can make more room for other guys. Chris Bubich was once a starter turned reliever, now back to starter. He's a lefty, has some good stuff. How is he going to really play as a full-time starter now? But the bullpen's really solid. Carlos Estevez is who they went out and got as a good closer, was traded mid-year last year from the Angels to the Phillies. Really didn't perform too well with the Phillies at the end, but was awesome with the Angels. He comes in to be their closer projected right now, but I think this other guy, Lucas Erceg, could be their closer. Has nasty stuff. Slider, sinker, cutter. Nasty dude. Throws 97 on the sinker, too. It just runs in right at your hands if you're a righty and flies away from you as a lefty. I think he can be the closer. But then other guys, Hunter Harvey has a funky delivery. John Schreiber's a submarine guy, former Red Sox. Angel Zerpa, a sidearm left-handed guy. Chris Stratton, kind of a whatever guy. Sam Long was awesome in the limited innings he had last year. Carlos Hernandez was awesome in his starter role as well as his relief role. So The bullpen's really solid. The bullpen is right there, and it seems like that's a common theme with these AL Central teams, but it's all about how is that bottom half of the rotation going to perform, and how is the bottom half of the lineup going to be as well. Now, obviously, they have a guy that is going to probably be fast-tracked pretty quickly to the major leagues, and how quickly they're going to want to open up a DH spot or a first base spot for the Florida Gator great Jack Caglione will be determined. They're expecting him to be a year away, but if he starts tearing the cover off the ball, he is going to find a way on this roster down the stretch, and I don't even look twice on that. I would not be surprised whatsoever. But then you have other guys in the system that can make an impact. Noah Cameron is one of the guys that they're really looking at to potentially be on the big league roster. He's a lefty, kind of just good at everything, has good control. Nothing that's going to blow you out of the water, but a guy that they really love and are excited about. And then you just kind of look down towards the bottom of their rankings a little bit. They got Drew Beam in the draft as well, a former Tennessee Volunteer national champion. He throws it pretty well. Good fastball, good changeup, can control it pretty well. He's a project, but he's old enough to where they can kind of start to project him out a little bit more to where he can be. Junior Vaz, second base and outfielder guy in the system, is a lefty. If Melendez or any of the platoon guys on the bench doesn't do well, he can come up. He doesn't hit really for power. He's a big contact guy, so do with that what you will. And then one of the other guys that I'm pretty excited about when you get down here, and I think that he can honestly make an impact on this team, because he is a guy that not really going to blow you away. Again, he was similar to the guy that we talked about just a little bit ago in this system. Noah Cameron is who we were talking about a little bit ago. But when you look at a guy like Tyson Guerrero, he's not going to blow you away with everything. But when he was at Washington, he was just money every single time. Soft contact, getting through innings, high pitch count because he was going through it, going through the lineups pretty easily. His slider is one of the nastier ones I've seen out of prospects. He's in the AAA system right now. I think he has a chance to impact the major league roster here in a bullpen role as a soft throwing lefty. But quite frankly, it's hard to judge how these teams are going to be. I think the Royals win 84 games this year. They're going to finish a couple shy of what they had last year, but I think it ties them up with the team that we're going to talk about next. Here in the Detroit Tigers, they're very similar situations who had a great stretch of the end of the season last year, but how are they going to kind of progress into this next season? How are they going to develop? It's really hard to project some of their developments. But with this lineup, it's a really weird one. They went out and got Gleyber Torres. He's going to be your 3-hole. Riley Green's obviously an all-star in this lineup. Kerry Carpenter hits bombs. Colt Keith was one of your top prospects who was playing second base. Now you got him playing first. Spencer Torkelson was a former first overall pick. Move him off first base. He's your DH now. It's kind of a weird situation. Trey Sweeney's going to be your leadoff hitter. They're bringing up Jace Young, brother of Josh Young of the Rangers. He's one of their top prospects in the organization. You're going to miss Matt Vierling and Parker Meadows, who were two very, very important pieces to your playoff run last year. You're going to miss them for a little bit. And then your bench, Dylan Dingler, is your backup catcher behind Jake Rogers. Javier Baez, yikes, we all know that situation. Andy Ibanez, really good contact guy. And then Justin Henry Malloy, who started a playoff game or two for the Tigers last year. But really, when you look at the Tigers, it's about Green, it's about Torres, it's about Carpenter, it's about Colt Keith. It's about if Torkelson can come back, Trey Sweeney potentially can make an impact. But it's really kind of holding over until Vierling and Meadows can get into the lineup. But you look down at their rotation and their bullpen, and this is where it gets really exciting to look at, because they have one of the top 3 best pitchers in baseball, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, and Tarek Skubal. And when you talk about you need to sit down and watch a start of Tarek Skubal, You just have to. The Cy Young Award winner last year in 192 innings had a 2.39 ERA with a .922 WHIP, a 2.49 FIP, 10.7 strikeouts per nine, only 1.5 walk per nine, 6.3 WAR. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. One of the best pitchers in baseball last year with 228 strikeouts. Forgot to mention that part of everything. When Scooball's pitching, you sit down and watch. Amazing left-handed starter. I don't know why I didn't mention him when I talked about the amazing lefties last time. I guess I was kind of previewing what was going to be coming next when I talked about lefty starters. But Scooball is a top-tier pitcher in baseball. His whole situation with the Tigers and the contract is still yet to be seen, or remains to be seen. But he's going to be the frontline starter to back up guys like Jack Flaherty, who signed a deal with the Tigers last year, was traded to the Dodgers at the deadline, won a World Series, kind of got sick in the NLCS, wasn't great in the NLCS and World Series as he was in the regular season, and took free agency this offseason and said, hey, you know what, I'm going back to Detroit. So that could really, really bolster this rotation, which is why I have them progressing a little higher than the other teams. And then guys like Reese Olson and Casey Mize, who are sinker ballers, are going to be able to get you over and be good 3 and 4s. Jackson Jobe, they're one of their top prospects in the organization here, is going to be the guy that's going to be your 5th starter because Alex Cobb, who you signed in the offseason, is not going to be ready for spring training. But Jobe, amazing fastball, amazing slider, good changeup, cutter's nasty. Doesn't really know where he's going with it at times, but has looked good in spring training to where he has earned that 5th starter role or 5th starter spot in the rotation. The bullpen after that, Jason Foley was really good last year for them at the closer role. Bo Brisk was great down the stretch in the playoffs. Tyler Holton as well. Tommy Kahnle coming over from the Yankees has World Series experience to get to this roster. Will Vest, Andrew Chafin, and then Kento Maeda, former starter, now bullpen guy for this team probably, just because they're paying him a lot. That's your bullpen. That's really decent, honestly. And then you're going to be getting Alex Lang back at some point here this year as well, who is awesome as a closer and back-end reliever for you. I love this team. I think they're really good. I think they've got a chance to – I think they got a better chance for their 5 through 9 guys to take a step up compared to the Royals 5 through 9 guys, which is why I kind of lean towards them. I think there's more stability in the rotation. Sure, Mize is not, obviously was the number 1 pick for the out of Auburn so many years ago now. Had a lot of promise, just kept getting hurt. But I think that the floor for Mize is higher than the floor for Bubic. And then Jobe's ceiling is higher than what Seth Lugo could even be. So the real thing is I think there's more potential and more opportunity with the rotation for Detroit to kind of be that team to take over the pitching. And then when Vierling and Meadows aren't even in your lineup, and they were 2 of the most impactful players for your team last year down the stretch and in the playoffs, that just adds even more to your to your starting lineup, which is why I have them ultimately winning 84 as well. A couple of the prospects I have, I'm not really too familiar with the Tiger system, except for Max Clark, their number 2 prospect. He is awesome. Outfielder, was taken in the top 3, I believe, in the draft 2 years ago. Amazing hit tool, really fast, good glove. He's just really, really young, 20 years old now, I believe, and it's going to take him some time to kind of get up there. But there's some other guys. Ty Madden can make an impact right now. Troy Melton, 2 arms that are 13 and 15 in the system. Jake Miller, a left-handed arm that can make an impact now. And then Josku Brasino, I believe, is how you pronounce it. I read a lot about him. He's their best catching prospect coming up next to Thyron Lorenzo, I believe, is how you pronounce it. But Briseño has great power, not great behind the dish, but has really good hit tools, can run kind of well, has a decent arm. So maybe you're looking at him in a DH role at some point. But I read an article on where they really liked him a lot. So I knew I had to put him in this in the notes as well for this one. you kind of look at the Tigers, and I know I'm not taking too long to talk about them because the question marks for them are less than the question marks for the other teams that we mentioned. And I feel more secure with A.J. Hinch as the manager, despite his cheating stuff with the Astros. He's still an amazing manager that didn't change anything, and he obviously proved that last year. You get the veteran bat in Gleyber Torres. I'm sure that they're willing to be able to go out and get a new arm, or not a new arm, a new bat if they need to. I look at this team, and it's an 84-win team as well, but the potential to finish first is completely there. But I think the team that can finish first has been waiting to really show off their feathers and has been ready to go for a little while. And I think that the ceiling for the other teams is higher, but the floor for this team is much higher than the other floors. Because with young guys, you never know what you can get. But with experienced guys, veteran guys, there's a higher chance for success. And I think the Minnesota Twins could finish first. It's been a really weird time to watch what the Twins do because it's, again, another roller coaster, just up and down seasons. They win the division, they lose in the first round. They miss the playoffs with injuries. They make the playoffs, lose in the first round. And it's just so disappointing to watch. But I think that this team, when you look at it, has the chance to potentially go forward. And I think it's because their bullpen can really, really, really supplement what these starters can do, and especially how that lineup is shaped out. Matt Wallner is going to be leading off. Southern Miss to the top right there. One of the best players to come through Southern Miss. Sure, he's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to murder baseballs. And that's what they're really excited about with Minnesota is Matt Wallner being a leadoff guy. Kind of like a Kyle Schwarber role. Not afraid to strike out, but also knows if he connects with one, it's gone. It's literally like a mirror of what Kyle Schwarber will be. Then right after that, you go straight into Carlos Correa, an MVP caliber player when healthy, World Series champion, guy who last year in 367 plate appearances had a 310 average, 905 OPS, only 14 homers, but had a 4.3 WAR. He's a veteran leader of this team. If he goes, the team goes. And I think he has the chance to impact this team in an even bigger way than he already has before in an MVP finish. And he's hungry. He knows that the clock is ticking eventually on his health and his career. So it's time for him to kind of, put up or shut up. And same thing with the next guy, Byron Buxton. It's all been about injuries with him. How is he going to stay healthy? Well, he's going to prove it to you by going back out to center field and doing that. If he can stay healthy, he's amazing. Trevor Larnach is going to be your 4-hole hitter playing in left. That's the obvious question mark of what that's going to be. But I think it's because you don't want to put 3 righties in a row because Royce Lewis has all the makings of being that DH guy or that 4-hole hitter. He got hurt last year, hit 233, had 16 homers, but was awesome. Was really, really awesome, electrifying player. It seems like he just mashes the baseball, plays it all over the field. He has a chance to be amazing this year and take another step as long as he stays healthy. Willie Castro, switch hitting DH for them. He's really, really good in spots when you need him. Ryan Jeffers behind the plate hit 21 homers. They got Ty France, the former Mariner. He's looking to have some revenge. His average has gone down. He's never going to hit too many homers. He's a lot of hard contact going, shooting for base hits and singles. That kind of decreased last year, and that's why he kind of flipped around, got DFA and went to the Reds, obviously, then hit free agency and came to Minnesota as they could use another first baseman with his experience, and they do. And then Brooks Lee is the guy where you're looking at a really young player and hoping that he can perform. And last year he hit 221 in 185 plate appearances, but he's a switch hitting guy, really quick. Solid glove at second. So, again, I think that the room for error with this team is much less in the lineup than there are with any other teams. Your bench bats, Christian Vasquez, love Vasquez. He's taken a step back hitting-wise, but he's still an awesome player. Jose Miranda, great glove, great bat, not great glove. Eduardo Julian, in the infield, another great prospect, was amazing. Was hitting over 300 for such a long time for this team at second base and just didn't find the consistency last year. And then Harrison Bader, another Gator, here to mention. Good defensive replacement in the outfield when Buxton needs the DH or Buxton wants to eventually slides to the corner. Bader can be there in center. The bullpen in the rotation. Now, there's some parts of this rotation where you look at it and it's okay. What are you going to get at the bottom? But for the most part, Pablo Lopez is your number one. 6.92 K per nine with a 4 ERA, 198 strikeouts as your main guy. Joe Ryan had injury last year, only threw 135 innings, but 3.6 ERA in that time, a 10 K per nine, 1.53 walk per nine. Bailey Ober, who came out of nowhere and being one of the more dominant pitchers in baseball for just a little bit, kind of fell off towards the end of the season, but was dominant. Had a 3.98 ERA, could be much lower than that, a 9.62 K per nine with 191 strikeouts. And then your bottom two guys, Simeon Woods Richardson in limited innings, a 4.17 ERA, and then Chris Paddock, which he's trying to be a saving project right there at 88 innings, a 5 ERA, but a 2.14 walk per nine, which is heavenly for him. Unfortunately for him, a lot of his stuff is just very flat and straight, which gets hit. However, you never know. It could really, based on how this offseason has gone for him and how he has progressed, that's really what they're hoping for, him to take a next step. And hopefully for this team, he does take that next step and becomes a dominant guy, as we once saw with the Padres and showing flashes that he could be that guy. But the bullpen, just gross. Johan Duran, electric closer. Griffin Jacks was one of the best relievers in baseball last year. Cole Sands, same thing, was awesome. Brock Stewart, sure he has a high ERA, but he throws it hard. Jorge Alcala, awesome. Danny Colombi, who was amazing for the Orioles last year as a lefty reliever, comes here and expects to do the same thing. Cody Funderbunk, not great. Elberson Castellano, not great as well. But, again, you look at it and it's like, yeah, sure, those are their two, like, whatever guys, but your 7, 8, 9 inning guys, which are going to matter the most, are absolutely disgusting. And then if, Paddock or Woods Richardson gets into a little bit of an issue and you're having to bring out Brock Stewart or Alcala to get things done earlier, it could be done. And I am really, really excited to see if this team makes the step up that they need to. Now, out of their prospects, Emmanuel Rodriguez has the chance to be able to play at the major league level this year. He has just not stayed healthy, 22 years old. Amazing power, really good arm, decent defender, can run a little bit. He has the chance to go up and play at the major league level. Will Walker Jenkins take a fast track to the MLB? He is one of the best prospects in baseball. Amazing hit tool with great power, good arm, solid fielder. How quickly can he get ready? He's going to start at AA. They're expecting him to get up there next year, which makes the most sense. But Emmanuel Rodriguez is probably the guy to look at for this year. In the outfield, Marco Raya is another guy that could potentially come up to the Major League roster this year as a right-handed guy in the bullpen probably. Fastball's pretty solid. Slider's really good. Cutter's really solid. Just doesn't know how to command the strike zone. It seems like that's been the biggest issue for him. Another guy, Corey Lewis, can also come up to the big leagues at 24. He's an off-speed guy. He throws a knuckleball. That's all you need to know about Corey Lewis. And then the last guy to talk about, he's kind of down by the Eberson Castellano range of players to kind of look at when it comes to this year. But Travis Adams is one of the guys to look at. He's got a fastball, slider, cutter. Changeup's okay, but he knows how to throw strikes. Was at Sacramento State and then went to Wichita. And he is awesome. I really like him a lot. I think he has a chance to crack the rotation or the bullpen at some point this season. But it's really relying on, will they get that extra bat? I think they can. I really, really do think that they can get that bat. And in the terms of Emmanuel Rodriguez, I have them winning 86 games. And the main difference with all of these teams is who is going to have the highest floor. Because the ceilings for the Guardians, even the Royals, obviously the Tigers and the Twins are all very similar to their ceiling. But the floor for each of those teams are much different. Because when you look at the Tigers, they were not a good baseball team until the last stretch of the season. Can they replicate that August and September, the entire season? Or will it be like April and May for this year? For the Royals, will it be like July and August? Or will it be just like that September that almost knocked them out of the playoffs on their own? And then the Twins, can they stay healthy? They've got the players, they've got the talent. Can they stay healthy fully with that lineup? Can their pitching get them over? Can their bullpen stay consistent? Will the young guys come up and help? Time will tell. This is an interesting division. It's always an interesting, tight, close division in the fact of one team is the worst team in baseball, another team is really good, and then everyone in the middle is just throwing haymakers at one another, trying to find a wild card spot, or maybe even 2 wild card spots like they did last year. I think this is a division that you have to keep close look and eyes on. But ultimately, I have the Twins finishing first in this division. I really feel bad now kind of looking at it with the Guardians finishing so low. I mean, that is an 11-game drop-off I have them doing. But you look at it, and it's just not as good. It's just not as good as their team was last year. I don't know. I'm trying not to second guess myself here, but I think this is pretty solid. I think this is where we want to be in the standings wise. So this is my AL Central breakdown. I appreciate you all for listening. Again, on Friday we're going to be doing the NL Central, and then Monday we'll be doing the NL West. That we can cover the Cubs, we can cover the Dodgers. But those are 2 teams that I know have people that listen that are fans of the team. So we'll be able to get those breakdowns on all those teams in those divisions. Follow me on my socials at the Punch Out Pod, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff. You know where to find me. Again, I couldn't be more grateful for you guys listening. There's been a lot of support on the first 2 episodes, especially this most recent one. You don't really know how you're going to get reactions when you're talking about just, teams and their rosters for an hour and the projections, but hopefully it's enjoyable enough. Again, I know it's late to say it now. I probably should have said it at the beginning of the episode, but there's timestamps in the description for all the episodes. So if you want to go back and listen to the old ones and you only want to look for one team and think about what I said, you can go find the timestamps on those. It'll be on this episode and ones going forward. I appreciate you all for listening again, and I'll see y'all Friday.